I lived on the street for 12 years. I robbed a bank, and everything changed the day a stranger knocked on my door. This is how it starts. There is no other way to count. I could invent that it was out of necessity, that it was just another bad day, that I wanted to get out of poverty. But the truth is, that day, I wanted to disappear. I wanted to stop being invisible, and at the same time, I wanted to disappear from the world. I didn't know who I was anymore, not who I had been. Today, my name is Isabel Torres, 63 years old. A lot of people call me Dona Isa, and I let them. Most don't know who I was, and honestly, I'm not even sure if I'm still that woman. I live in a simple neighborhood, among old buildings and people who have suffered more than they should. I opened a small cafe 6 years ago, with the little I had. It's a cramped place, with 4 wooden tables and a worn counter. It serves strong coffee, sweet bread, and stories that no one asked to. Here, everyone around here has been through, and I'm just one more. I wake up at 5:30. I open the gate carefully, as if I were afraid of waking up ghosts. I wash the floor in the cafe listening to the old radio, and the smell of the soap reminds me of the shelters where I slept hidden. The first customer is always Dona Marta, who comes to pray while drinking coffee. Then, the delivery men, the taxi drivers, and the lonely retirees arrive. Nobody asks me much, and I like it that way. Sometimes a child comes in to use the bathroom and asks why I have a key hanging around my neck. I smile and say it's to remember that everyone has something locked inside. The key is small, old, silver, with an almost erased number. I never told anyone what it opens, maybe because I'm afraid to open it myself. The truth is that I built my new life on silence. Silence about what happened that night. Silence about the money that disappeared. Silence about the names I never spoke again. Silence about the children I gave up for adoption when I was still sleeping on the sidewalk. And silence became armor. But armor is heavy, and over time, they weigh more than guilt. That Tuesday morning, it was unseasonably hot. The sky was cloudless, and the noise of buses invaded the street as always. It was exactly 9:43 in the morning. I remember the time because I had just served a second coffee to a man who always complained about the sugar. I was distracted, mopping the counter, when I heard the knock on the back door. It wasn't common. Nobody knocked there. That side faced the alley where only cats, rats, and ghosts of the past passed by. My body froze before consciousness understood why. I walked slowly, foot by foot, and through the crack in the curtain, I saw a figure wearing a cap, a light shirt, and a look that didn't match his face. It was the look of someone who knew too much. I opened the door with the same hand I've wielded weapons with in the past, but now she was shaking. He looked at me as if he didn't need to ask anything. He just extended his arm and handed over a yellowed envelope, with no name, no return address. And he said the phrase that hasn't left my head since. What you hid cost a life. Now it will cost another. And he left. I didn't run after. I didn't scream. I didn't ask for explanations. I just closed the door and leaned against it, feeling the world shaking inside. My heart was beating like it wanted to run away, as if he knew that phrase was more than a threat. It was the past saying he was still alive, that it doesn't matter how many names I change, how many prayers I repeat, how many mornings do I pretend I'm just Dona Isa at the cafe. What I did was coming back, and he came to charge dearly. That night, I couldn't sleep. The envelope was on the kitchen table, still unopened. I looked at it like it was a bomb, because deep down it was. The key hanging around my neck felt heavier. I wondered if he knew, if he had seen it, if someone had told, or if time just decided it was time. The next morning, when I opened the cafe, the first thing I felt was silence. Conversations dropped in tone. Looks took a little longer than they should have. Someone knew, or someone was about to know. And at that moment, for the first time in many years, I knew there was no way I could escape. If you believe that it is never too late to face the truth, leave your comment saying which city you are watching from. Here on the Emotion of Age channel, we tell stories of those who had a dark past, but decided not to die in it. If this story has already touched you, leave a like, activate the bell, and subscribe, because there is much more to come. But I warn you, nothing that comes from now on is light, not easy, and much less forgotten. That night, after the stranger left and the silence turned to threat, I finally opened the envelope. From the outside, it looked like any other paper, but inside, it was as if it was full of blades. There was only one photo, an old photo, in black and white, out of focus, as if it had been taken at night. SS. 3 people. A man in a suit, fallen. Another with a hood, and me, less than 30 years old, hair tied up, gun in hand. The frozen moment of a crime that I spent half my life trying to erase. What I felt was no surprise. It was exhaustion, as if the body said it knew this was going to happen, sooner or later. I sat on the kitchen floor, hugged my knees, and let the memories come. And they came like an avalanche. I was born at the end of the 50s, in a noisy village where no one cared about anyone. My mother's name was Teresa, and she worked washing other people's clothes. My father was called Raul, and he was what they called an angry man. But I know today that he was a coward with a bottle in his hand. I grew up among screams, slamming doors, and dangerous silences. I learned early to walk without making noise, and I learned that the world had no place for girls who cry. At 8 years old, I started stealing fruit from markets to feed my younger brothers. At 12, my mother disappeared. Nobody explained. They just said she left, but I knew. I heard the screams the night before. I never spoke to my father again after that. I just obeyed. I just survived. At 17, I ran away from home with a man who promised the world. His name was Damian. She was 29, with beautiful eyes and hands that clapped with love. He took me away, said we would build something new. And for a while, I believed it, until his belly grew and he disappeared. My first child was born in the bathroom of a boarding house. It was raining. The owner of the place told me to leave the same day. I didn't have time to rest. I carried my son in my arms, wrapped in a dirty blanket, and went out into the street. There was nowhere to go back. Nobody expected me. Nobody was looking for me. During the first 3 years, I sold candy at traffic lights, cleaned houses in the early hours of the morning, and ate leftovers from the market. I met other women in the same situation. We formed a kind of silent alliance. We slept in shifts. One watched, the other rested. I became invisible. That's when I met Elias. He had a van, clean clothes, and a direct manner. He said he could help me. I just needed to carry a backpack from one place to another. I didn't ask what it was. I just took the money and said thank you. It was more than I would make in 2 months, selling candy. The following month he offered me twice as much, then triple, until, in a short time, I already knew names, schemes, routes. I never touched a gun, not at that stage. He only carried envelopes, bags, documents, but I knew what I was carrying, and I pretended not to. At 25, I had my second daughter. This time, the father was one of the men in the group. He died 2 months later, in a reckoning. I didn't cry. I learned that crying didn't change anything. When the police carried out an operation in the neighborhood, I lost everything. They stole my money, burned the shack where I lived. My children were taken away by social workers. They said it was to protect them. They didn't let me see them. To this day, I don't know which city they ended up in. All I know is that they left crying. I got the blame, and with a scar on the soul that never closed. It was after that that I was offered a different job, a big thing. They said it was a chance to change their lives. Rob a bank, 3 cars, 2 minutes, everything planned. They promised no one would get hurt. I hesitated, but what did I have to lose? The night before the robbery, I wrote a letter to each of my children. I left it in a wooden box, along with the only photo I had of the 3 of us. I locked the box with a key, the same key I carry to this day. On the morning of the robbery, it was cloudy. I remember the smell of the car, the music playing on the radio. I remember the mask pressing my face, the heavy gun in my hand. I remember the sound of glass breaking and the alarm going off. I remember the man in the suit trying to run, and I remember pulling the trigger. They say it was an accident. They say the gun fired on its own, but I know what I did. And the sound of that shot has stayed with me ever since. Not for the sound, but for the silence that came after. I ran away. I left the money. I left the others. I hid for months. I cut my hair, changed my name, burned clothes. I worked as a cleaner, as a cook, as a seamstress. I changed cities, after country. I tried to forget. I tried to be someone. The years passed. The wrinkles have arrived. The hands became slow, but memory never failed. Every time I looked at someone smiling with their children, I felt like I owed the world something. As if one day someone would knock on my door and collect the invoice. And that's exactly what happened. Now that the past has returned, everything I built seems fragile. The tables in my cafe, the bread on the counter, the smile of my neighbors, everything seems like the scene of a lie that will finally fall apart. I kept that key because I needed to remember that there was something I hadn't closed yet that was still there, inside me, locked but alive. And maybe, just maybe, it came to time to open. The next morning, the cafe opened as usual. The smell of baking bread filled the air. The same voices as always filled the room with small stories, complaints about politics, tired laughter. But inside me, something had changed. That photo in the envelope, that stranger's look, it had all opened a rift that I had spent years trying to close routinely. While serving Dona Marta coffee, I noticed that she was looking at me differently. Her gaze, which had always been gentle, now carried hesitation, as if something was wrong, as if she knew. I tried to pretend it was all in my head, but the looks began to repeat themselves. A man across the street stared at me for too long. One of the delivery men avoided looking into my eyes. The silence between conversations became heavier. It was as if a shadow had settled over the neighborhood, and I was its origin. That afternoon, I closed the cafe early. I couldn't bear the weight of other people's gaze. When I turned the corner, I saw an envelope taped to the back door. In big red letters, it said, "Murderous." The heart accelerated. I took the paper with shaking hands. Inside was a copy of the same photo the stranger handed me, but now with a handwritten sentence. "Do you really think you could hide this forever?" Fear set in like a slow poison. I looked around. The windows were closed. No sound, just the buzzing inside my head. The key hanging around my neck burned like a hot iron. That night I locked all the doors. I turned off the lights. I sat on the kitchen floor with the key between my fingers. I thought about running away again. I thought about disappearing, but it was no longer possible. I had a life now. I had a name. And even if no one knew, I was tired of running. 2 days later, the situation worsened. A woman came into the cafe, ordered a double coffee, sat by the window and watched me the entire time. When he left a sheet of newspaper on the table. On the front page, a headline in old letters read, "Bloody Robbery in 2001. Below, a blurred image of armed vigilantes, a body on the ground, and a woman with her face partially covered. The caption said, "Search continues for missing person." And there, looking back at me from the photo, was me. I went back inside the counter feeling weak in my legs. The head spun. The past was making headlines again. The question was, who was behind it? Who had saved this photo? Who wanted to see me exposed? That night, I called Lucia, the daughter I met again years later, when she was already an adult. She grew up in a foster family. There was study. There were opportunities that I never had. But he also carried deep hurts. I never told everything, just enough for her to partially accept me into her life. She let me spend time with her grandchildren in a limited way, but she never called me mother. When he answered, his voice was dry. I tried to speak calmly, but my voice broke. I said something from my past was coming back, that someone was trying to harm me. I asked if she knew anything, if anyone had contacted her. She was silent for a little too long, and then he said someone showed up days before. A man, high, with a neutral accent. He said he wanted to talk about me. Who knew things? She refused to listen, but the doubt remained. Before hanging up, she said a sentence that still echoes in my ears. "You built your life on secrets, but secrets have an expiration date." The next day, the cafe woke up with a phrase spray-painted on the side wall. "She killed a man, and he disappeared with the money." People began to slowly pass by. Some stopped, others took photos. A lady who always bought pie left her money on the counter and left without saying a word. Shame began to invade the space like smoke, and I realized that there was no longer any way to contain it. I went to the back, opened an old toolbox, took a sealed envelope, and left towards the house of a person I swore I would never look for again, a criminal lawyer who helped me in the past in exchange for silence. He opened the door with a look of astonishment and fear. I explained everything. I showed the photo. I asked if he had any idea who was behind it. He hesitated. He said maybe it was Raul, one of the men who participated in the robbery and disappeared soon after. He said there were rumors that he had infiltrated public security using false documents that could have access to old files, and maybe he wanted revenge. Why? Because he believed I was the one who gave up the names. Fear turned to anger. Anger at having to relive that. Anger at being hunted for crimes that weren't just mine. Anger at having tried to do everything right for so many years and now being pulled back to the bottom. On the way home, I looked at the key around my neck and remembered what it opened. An old locker in an abandoned bus station, Ada, where I hid a dossier with documents, photos, and details of everything that happened that week before the robbery. That was my last letter, my salvation or my damnation. The next day, I arrived at the cafe and found Lucia sitting waiting for me. Closed face, steady eyes. She said someone had left a letter at her house. Inside, more photos, more threats, and a copy of the letter I wrote her before the robbery. The same one I put in the wooden box. The same one I believed untouched. She looked at me and asked with a choked voice, "Did you lie to protect me or to protect yourself?" And before I could respond, she got up and left. If you've made it this far, it's because you feel like this story talks about something bigger. So comment below what you would do if your past started to haunt you. What name would you have the courage to face again? And if you haven't left a like yet, now is the time. This helps the Emoção de Agência channel to continue bringing stories that show that the truth is demanding, but also frees. Lucia left and left silence in the place where a conversation should have been. I remained there, still, looking at the untouched cup of coffee on the table. It was like looking at a field after a storm. Everything was still standing, but nothing was the same. For the first time, my daughter knew what I was hiding. And for the first time, she looked at me as if I were someone else, someone she never wanted to meet. In the following days, the attacks did not cease. The cafe's facade dawned with words in red: thief, coward, assassin. Customers started to disappear. Some changed sidewalks. Others crossed the street just to avoid crossing paths with me. Those who previously called me Dona Isa now bowed their heads. Even the children started whispering when I crossed the square. That week, I was called by a social worker at the school where my grandson studied. He said there was an episode. An older boy had shown an old video with a montage of my photo next to images of robberies. The grandson came home crying. He asked his mother if it was true that his grandmother had killed someone. I returned home speechless. My 6-year-old granddaughter hugged me and said she wanted to play, but her eyes held questions that she didn't yet know how to ask. And there, with that child clinging to my legs, I felt smaller than ever. I called the lawyer again. I demanded answers. He hesitated. He stammered, until he confessed. Someone reached out to him weeks ago, a man offering money to access old documents. He refused at first, but then relented. He said he needed to pay a debt. The man's name? Raul. The same. The robbery partner. What disappeared? The one he believed I gave him away years ago. It was at that moment that I understood. Raul not only knew where I was, he wanted to destroy me completely. Not with weapons, but with shame, with exposure, with humiliation. He didn't want to kill me. I wanted the world to see me die little by little. I returned to the cafe the next day and found the police waiting. They said there were anonymous complaints, money laundering, identity concealment. They requested my documents. They searched the place. They took my computer. Neighbors watched everything from the sidewalk, in silence. Those looks hurt more than any handcuff. I was taken to give a statement, and there, in a cold room, surrounded by men and women who saw me as a number, I realized that my new life was falling apart. One of the agents asked me if I knew the name Raul Benitez. He said he had reappeared and requested judicial protection, who claimed to be the target of a criminal network, who said he had evidence against me. The irony was suffocating. He played the victim, and I, who had spent 20 years trying to disappear so as not to cause any more pain, was now the monster in the story. When I came home, there was a letter under the door. No envelope, just a sheet with capital letters. You took away what I loved most. Now you will feel it on your skin. It was his. From Raul. I knew. I would recognize that handwriting even with my eyes closed. The pain turned to anger. Anger became a memory, and the memory turned to guilt. I spent the night awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, reliving each choice, every night on the street, every lie told, every door closed in my children's faces, every time I pretended to be strong when I just wanted to disappear. At around 4 a.m, I took the wooden box hidden behind the bookshelf. I placed it on the table. The key still hung around my neck. I spun, and I opened it. Inside, documents that I had kept for more than 2 decades. Photographs, notes, values, names, things that could save or sink my soul for good. The letter I wrote to Lucia was also there. The original, the one I left before the robbery. The handwriting was shaky. The words carried regret, but also cowardice. I asked for "I'm sorry," but I didn't tell the whole truth. I said I loved her, but I didn't say I abandoned her by choice, out of fear. That morning, Lucia appeared at the cafe. She entered without saying anything. He walked to the counter. He just said he needed to hear the truth. All. No shortcuts. No excuses. I looked at her and saw the same emptiness in her eyes that I saw in mine years ago when I had to leave my children. I sat in front of her and I spoke. I told everything. The assault, the death of the man in the suit, the escape, the change of identity, the documents, the guilt, the silence, the sleepless nights, the times I wanted to disappear, the times I almost told you but didn't have the courage. She didn't cry, just listened, in silence. In the end, I said I needed time, but before leaving, he looked at me and said, "You did what you thought was right, but that doesn't change what caused it, and maybe now is your time to pay, and perhaps also to free yourself." She's gone, and I stayed, for the first time, empty of lies. If you are following this story and believe that even the worst mistakes need to be faced, comment below the word truth. This helps the Emoção de Agência channel to continue bringing stories that show that no one is free from the consequences, but everyone deserves the chance to react. If you haven't liked it yet, now is the time. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, share it. Because sometimes the only way to move forward is to stop running. The next morning, I opened the cafe, but I didn't make any coffee. The chairs remained stacked. The smell of dust dominated the environment. The clock on the wall seemed louder than ever. The noise of the hands sounded like a reminder that time waited for no one. I looked at the wooden box open on the counter as if it had a life of its own. The papers inside weren't just evidence. They were pieces of my past that I had locked away forever. But now, every line written, every name scribbled, every value written down was a weapon. And for the first time, I didn't want to run away anymore. I wanted to fight. But truthfully, I took a deep breath, put on my best clothes, tied my hair tightly, and went to the public defender's office. I waited for hours. When I was finally seen, I sat across from a young lawyer named Camila. He had attentive eyes and a posture that mixed firmness and empathy. I only told what was necessary, handed over copies of some documents, and said that I feared for my safety and that of my grandchildren. She looked at me seriously and asked me to come back the next day with everything, without hiding anything. She said that if I was really willing to face the past, she would be willing to help me. That night, I received a call from a private number, the voice on the other. End was male, calm, cold. He only said one sentence. "You want to open wounds, Isabel, but don't forget that there are people willing to take what you have left," and hung up. My entire body froze, but I didn't hesitate. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about everything they did, about the fear they planted in me for years, and the need to put an end to it. I decided to go back to the abandoned bus station where the old locker was still locked. I took the key that I always carried around my neck and went there. The structure of the place was rusty. The smell was of dust and abandonment, but the closet was there, untouched. I opened it and took out a small leather folder. Inside, concrete evidence. Reports with corrupted police officers' names, cash payments, execution orders, dates, fake bank accounts. Among the documents, a cassette recording. I had done it myself, in secret, weeks before the robbery, during a meeting where Raul spoke openly about a blackmail plan against authorities. With this material in hand, I returned to the public defender's office. Camilla received me with more respect than before. He said that changed everything, that I could even ask for some type of legal protection. She organized a meeting with independent prosecutors and set it for 3 days later. It would be a closed hearing, but decisive. On the way back home, I met Nina, my granddaughter. She was waiting for me sitting on the sidewalk with a backpack on her lap. When he saw me, he got up and hugged me. He said he had heard the adults whispering, that he knew something very serious was happening, and that he didn't want any more lies. He asked if I was bad, if I was dangerous. I replied that I went, but now I wanted to do the right thing. She looked at me with teary eyes and said, "So promise me you'll be brave until the end." And I promised. 2 days later, I received an unexpected visitor. It was Tomas, my son, the one I believed I would never see again. He had grown up, he was strong, he had a beard, his eyes were like mine. He said he found out where I was from a social worker. He said he saw my name on a discussion forum where they were talking about the robbery, but he still wanted to look for me. We sat one day each other, like two strangers. He didn't ask for explanations, just said, "I want to know who I am, and who you were, but mostly, who do you want to be now?" And I responded, "I want to be someone who doesn't run away anymore." The day before the hearing, I received yet another threat, a note stuck to the cafe door with letters cut from a magazine. "You won't make it out alive next morning." I smiled for the first time in weeks, not out of courage, but because I understood that when they want to shut you up, it's because you're finally saying something that matters. The next morning, I entered the courtroom with the folder in hand, Camilla by my side. At the opposite table, two prosecutors were attentive. I explained everything. I told my entire story, without flourishes. I handed over the documents, the recording, the dates. I mentioned names, showed connections. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I asked for justice. I showed that Raul was behind the threats, that he used my guilt to protect himself, that behind the story of the robbery there was a much larger network, a network of silence, fear, and corruption. In the end, Camilla asked that the evidence be placed in temporary secrecy until a broader investigation was possible. Prosecutors agreed. They said that my report would be cross-referenced with others that had recently emerged. I left that room with wobbly legs, but for the first time, with my chest up. On the same day, Lucia called me. He said he heard about the hearing. He said he read about me on a legal blog. She said she was still confused, but in a way, she felt relieved that everything had come to light. He ended the call by saying that he still didn't know if he could forgive me, but that he respected me for choosing to stop lying. And there, between harsh truths and heavy silences, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Respect, not from others, but from myself. If you've come this far and believe that even the hardest past can serve to build a new path, comment below on the word justice. Your comment helps this channel, Emotion of Age, to continue telling stories of women who faced the abyss and still chose not to fall. If you haven't enjoyed it yet, do so now and share with someone who needs to hear that the truth can hurt, but it can also free. Because there are times in life when courage is not about fighting, it's about stopping running away. The city dawned gray on the day everything would come to light. Heaven seemed to know that something important was about to happen. Low fog covered the rooftops, and the silence in the streets was strange for a Wednesday morning. I walked to the courthouse with slow but steady steps. Each step was a break with the past. Every meter took me away from the woman I pretended to be, and I got closer to the woman who finally accepted what she had been. The entrance was full of people, cameras, microphones, onlookers, reporters. The article on the legal blog had spread. My name was circulating again, but this time not as a fugitive, and yes, as a witness, or perhaps as someone who decided not to die in silence. I was taken to a smaller, private room. There would be two prosecutors there, my lawyer Camila, an investigating judge, two investigators, and to my surprise, Raul. He came in with that same look I remembered, the look of someone who never accepts losing. He wore a dark suit, a well-groomed beard, and a cynical expression. When he saw me, he just bowed his head lightly, as if to say that everything was still under control. The judge started the session. Camilla got up, opened the folder, and handed over the second part of the documents. It included the recording that proved the blackmail planned by Raul years before, the names involved, and a sequence of bank statements that showed suspicious transactions made by him under false identities. The mood in the room changed. The expressions of those present hardened. Raul, for a moment, lost his pose, tried to intervene. He said it was all manipulation, that I was trying to clear my name at the expense of old lies. But Camilla was direct. He showed a false identity certificate registered with his fingerprint. He showed security footage from 5 years ago, where he appeared in a meeting with business people linked to money laundering. And then he pressed play on the recording. His voice filled the room, cold, calculated, saying that if the operation ever went wrong, he would blame it on me. What weak women were good for, to carry the weight and disappear afterwards. The words cut like a blade. Nobody moved. Nobody was breathing, not even him. The judge asked for silence. He looked at Raul and asked if he would like to comment. He was silent. His silence was the cry of truth. Then they asked me to speak. I took a deep breath, and I started. I told you everything again, but now out loud, without fear, without hesitation. He said he had indeed participated in the robbery, that he had carried a gun, that I shot, that I ran away, but I was used, manipulated. What happened promises, that there were lies, that all of that happened at a time when I had nowhere to fall dead and where the world only offered me two options, be invisible or be an accomplice. Said I chose wrong. But today, after 24 years, for the first time, I chose to do the right thing. I told about the children I lost, the nights I slept under a bridge, from the days when I hid inside public bathrooms to cry. I told him that carrying a false name hurts more than any sentence, because we get used to hating each other. And when I finally decided to react, it was because I realized that I had already lost almost everything, less chance to tell the truth. The judge thanked him. I said that my testimony would be included in the reopening of the case, and that the documents would be sent to the public prosecutor's office. It also determined that Raul would be investigated for obstruction of justice, misrepresentation, and other crimes that would come to light as the evidence was analyzed. The hearing ended in silence, but in that silence, there was something new. There was dignity. On the way out, the reporters were in an uproar. Flashes, questions, noises everywhere. I didn't talk to anyone. I just walked to the square, next to the building, sat on a bench, and closed my eyes. For the first time in many years, I felt like I could breathe. At the end of the afternoon, I received a message from Lucia. It just said, I watched, and I cried. Not because it hurt, but because I understood. She ended with something she had never written before. You are no longer my shame. It's my root. And now I understand where I came from. That night I came home and sat at the table. I took out the key I always carried and decided it needed to change its function. I took a small piece of fabric, sewed a pendant around it, and gave it to my granddaughter. He said that one day it was a burden, but now it was a symbol. She smiled, and he hugged me tightly. Raul would be arrested 3 weeks later when he tried to leave the country with a false passport. The documents I delivered helped to open a larger investigation network. With warrants issued against influential names, I was not acquitted, but I haven't been forgotten either. A deal was made. I would give statements, work with guidance for homeless women, and have monitored freedom. I accepted without hesitation, because now, finally, I understood that justice is not about erasing the past. It's about giving it the right weight and allow it to turn into something that helps other people not repeat the same pain. If this part of the story touched you, comment below on the word truth. Your comment shows that real stories have power. If you haven't liked it yet, now is the time. And if you know someone who needs to hear that dignity can be recovered even after a life marked by mistakes, share this video. The Emotion of Age channel exists to show this, that even with scars, you can still walk. And if it's true, you can even fly. It's been almost a year since the hearing. The cafe is back in business, but in a different way. The sign remains the same. The tables are the same, and the smell of baking bread still permeates the street early in the morning. But whoever enters now no longer sees just a silent woman behind the counter. They see me as someone who faced a shadow, and he didn't run away. Many still whisper, and truth. There are curious looks, people who avoid my touch, others who greet me with renewed respect. But I learned not to measure my dignity by the way people look at me, and yes, the way I feel when I look in the mirror. My routine now starts with hot coffee and messages on my cell phone. Every day I receive messages from women who are experiencing similar situations. Some live on the streets, others are trapped in old lies. I send audios, respond calmly, share fragments of what I experienced, not as someone who has all the answers, but as someone who understands the value of being heard. With the support of the Public Defender's Office, I created a small community project in the back of the cafe, a room with tables, fabrics, threads, needles. I teach basic sewing to women at risk. Some come in fear, others angry. Some don't say a word for days, but they all, in some way, recognize themselves in me, and I in them. Camilla, my lawyer, is still around, now as a friend. She invited me to speak at a lecture at a local university. I almost refused. She said she wasn't good with words. She replied that it wasn't about talking nice. It was about speaking truthfully. And that, she said, I did like no one else. Lucia appears once a week with her grandchildren. She doesn't call me mom, but he calls me by name with affection. We sat together, drank tea, watched the children play. Sometimes we talk about the past. Other times we only observe the present. the silence between us is no longer uncomfortable. It is a type of reconciliation that does not need promises, just presence. Nina, my granddaughter, now proudly calls me Grandma. Took the T-bird that I gave him for school, on a string. I told the teacher that it was a symbol, a reminder that everyone has something they want to protect and something you want to release. When she told me this, I cried softly, washing dishes, not out of sadness, but because I understood that my story, however crooked it was already serving something bigger than myself. Tomas, my son, still lives far away. We talk via video when he can. He's rebuilding his life too. He said he doesn't want to live stuck with what he's been through. And that, in a way, knowing where you came from helps you decide where you're going. He calls me Mom, and that for me is a lot. Little is said about Raul. He remains in prison, awaiting trial. The evidence I gave helped open cases against other names. None of this gives me back lost time, but it gives me back the certainty that remaining silent will never be an option again. Today, I understand that justice is not just a court. Justice is waking up without fear. It's living with a clear conscience. It's looking at mistakes and, even without forgetting them, not allowing them to be the only chapter in our history. I am often asked if I regret it. The answer is simple. Yes, every day. But regret no longer destroys me. He guides me, reminds me of where I came from. It helps me not to repeat the same patterns, keeps me human. I learned that forgiveness is not something we demand. It's something we offer, sometimes for others, but almost always for herself. And that was the hardest forgiveness of all. Forgive myself for not knowing how to love, for abandoning, for having killed a part of me to survive. If someone asked me what has changed since I told them everything, I would say that now I sleep. It seems little, but sleeping in peace is rare for someone who spent so much time on the run. I have a small box where I keep messages from the women who come through my project. Small notes, pieces of paper with drawings, hastily written sentences. On one of them, it is written, "Thank you for showing that the fall is not the end." That note is stuck on my wall, and every day, before opening the coffee, I look at it. Maybe you who are listening to this story also have something in store. A hidden truth, a mistake you never faced, a pain you thought you needed to erase to move forward. I understand. I also thought silence was a shield. But today, I know that silence can also be prison. It doesn't matter your age, your origin, your mistake. What matters is what you decide to do from here. The past charges, but he also teaches. And when we decide to look at it head on, something changes, something opens. If this story touched you, comment below on the keyword courage. It sums up everything that brought me here. If you haven't liked this video yet, now is the time. This helps the Emotion of Age channel to continue sharing stories of real women who made mistakes, fell, but chose not to hide. And if you know someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to change course, share this video. It could be exactly the push that person needs to find their voice again. Just because it is possible to start over, even after losing almost everything, even after a life marked by wrong choices. Because starting over is not erasing what happened, it's learning to live with it. And even with scars, move forward with your head held high. It is never too late to regain your own dignity. A few weeks later, I was invited to participate in a conversation at a community center in the Yawai, neighboring city. The theme was social invisibility and new beginnings in maturity. I didn't know if I should accept it. I have always been more silent than words, but something in me said that this time it was different. I no longer needed to run away from my story, and perhaps it was time to put it at the service of others. On the appointed day, I wore a simple blouse, tied my hair up, and only took with me the old key hanging on the lanyard. Arriving there, I came across a group of around 20 women, most of them over 50 years old. Some with eyes marked by time, others with wounds that had no shape yet, but they all carried something in their chest that I recognized from afar. The pain of having lived too much and spoken too little. I sat in a circle, like everyone else. They didn't put me on a pedestal. They asked me how I started to change, and I responded with something I didn't plan. I said I started changing the day I stopped pretending I didn't need to. He said that shame is not the opposite of dignity. Shame is the first step before finding it again. I saw eyes watering. I saw heads nodding in silent agreement. After the conversation, a woman approached. She said that she had already been to 3 shelters and that no one listened to her anymore, that everyone said she was too old to try again. He took my hand and asked if there was still time. I didn't need to think. I just said that I was still breathing, so there was still plenty of time. Returned home that night in silence, but it was a good silence, a silence of someone who had fulfilled a duty without having to. For the first time, my pain wasn't just for me. It helped another woman see herself. Days later, Camilla called me with a proposal. He said that the sewing project I had started could receive a public grant. He said the name of the project would need to be formalized. He asked if I had already thought of something. I replied yes, key from inside. She laughed. He said he was strong. I said it was accurate. Since then, the small space at the back of the cafe has become a meeting place. Women arrive with children on their laps, others with sleepless eyes, some with visible marks on their bodies, others with hidden marks in the way they walk. Some don't know how to sew, but that's not why they come. They come because it's a place where no one needs to pretend to be strong all the time. Little by little, we formed a network. Women helping women. No judgment, no CV, no requirement, just presence. We exchange recipes, clothes, advice. We laugh, we cry, we celebrate small victories, a new interview, a call from a son, a day without crying. Everything counts. A local reporter came to do a story, photographed our group, published with the title Recomeços, embroidered by hand. He didn't mention my past, and I like that. For the first time, I wasn't in the news for what I caused, but for what I built. Lucia participated in one of these meetings, sat with other mothers. He heard. He spoke little but listened a lot. When he finished, he told me that he now understood that silence was also a form of violence, and that she didn't want to repeat this at home anymore. He said that if everything went well, he would soon open a small thrift store with donated clothes. He wanted me to do the renovations. I agreed right away. Tomas wrote to me. He sent a photo of him with a diploma in his hands, completed a technical course. He said he wanted to teach young people how to set up their own business. He thanked me for my courage, and I said that, even though I was far away, I felt closer now than ever. The coffee remains simple, but it is more than a trade. It's a place where life pulses in a different way, where the walls not only hold the smell of coffee, but stories of overcoming, of pain, of laughter, of forgiveness. Today, when I look out the window, I see children playing in the square. I see women walking with bags full of hope. I see myself in each one of them. I see what I was, but mostly, I see what I have become. And even though the old key no longer opens the closet where I hid the past, it now serves as a reminder that the most important thing was always inside. The key was mine, and I had to lose everything to find out. If this continuation touched your heart, write today's key word in the comments, which is inside, because it is exactly from within that we rebuild what life tried to break. If you haven't liked this video yet, now is the time. This helps the Emotion of Age channel to grow and continue sharing stories that, like this one, speak directly to those who have lived too long to pretend that everything is fine. And if you know someone who is struggling in silence, share, because the right video at the right time can save much more than we imagine. And never forget, scars are not a sign of failure. They are maps of the path we took, and each line tells us that we survived, and more than that we are still here. A month after the article was published in the local newspaper, I received a letter by hand. Simple envelope, no return address, with my name written in small, firm letters. Inside, few words, just a thank you. There was no signature, but I knew it came from someone who heard me speak, maybe in one of the circles, maybe in a shared video, maybe by chance. The letter said that, upon hearing my story, that person found the courage to leave the house after 5 months of silence. He said he did not return to the world with everything resolved, but with a new desire, wanting to see yourself with different eyes. I held that sheet for a long time. It was thin, fragile, but it carried a lot of weight. And for the first time, I understood what it meant to echo. My voice, which spent years trapped between closed teeth, now crossed streets, reached homes, sat next to other women who were also once silenced. And there, I understood that what I experienced was no longer just mine. It belonged to all of us. With the Chave de Dentro project gaining visibility, we received donations of fabrics, machines, and food. It wasn't much, but it was constant. The workshops began to take place 3 times a week. Women who were previously embarrassed to even ask for help now smiled at the end of each meeting. Some were already selling simple pieces at the city's traffic lights. Others began sewing for neighbors. The transformation was not only visible in the firmer fingers or straighter points, it was cleaner looking, in the way of walking more firmly. In one of these meetings, a young woman called Mirella stood up and said something that stuck with me. He said that, after hearing my story, he spoke to his own mother for the first time in 4 years. He said he understood that sometimes the silence of others was not lovelessness, but despair. And after that conversation, she slept peacefully for the first time in a long time. Hearing that broke me inside, because it was like seeing myself in a mirror. So many times, I thought my children hated me, when in reality, they just didn't know how to love a mother made of wounds. Shortly afterwards, Camilla invited me to participate in a public hearing on social reintegration programs for women over 50. The invitation seemed too big for me, but I went. I spoke in front of deputies, judges, activists. I told, once again, calmly and without shame, my story. But now, with a new focus. I talked about what worked. I spoke of the power of a simple room, of a thread and a needle in the hands of someone who had been ignored for a lifetime. Applause came, but what remained was what came after. A lady with white hair waited for me at the exit. He touched my arm and said, "I too was once just silent. Now I want to make some noise." These small phrases, these small encounters, are today the pillars of my new path. Because when we spend so much time burying who we are, any flower that sprouts seems like a miracle. Lucia now talks openly about me. He told his friends, for colleagues at work. He said he's not ashamed. She said she would rather have as a mother someone who made mistakes and had the courage to stand up than someone who pretends to be perfect all the time. That speech of hers passed through me like light passing through a closed window, and it reminded me that true love is not born from lies. He survives is the truth. My grandchildren continue to grow. Nina, the one with the key around her neck, wrote an essay at school about the bravest person she knows. He wrote about me. The teacher called me to talk. He said that after what Nina told, other children also shared stories about their grandmothers. One even said that her grandmother had raised her children alone after escaping a violent marriage. The teacher smiled and said, "Courage is also hereditary." The cafe is now also a library. We started collecting donated books. Women who attend the workshops take books home. Some are learning to read. Others return to reading after decades. One of them, called Vera, is 72 years old and had never read a novel until last month. He cried at the end of the first one. She said she felt alive in a way she no longer remembered. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if someone had reached out to me back there, when I was young, scared, confused. But today I know that this question is no longer useful, because now I am that outstretched hand, and that's enough. If you've come this far and felt something true during this journey, leave today's key word in the comments, which is fresh start, because he was the one that all this started. If you haven't liked it yet, now is the time. Your gesture helps the Emoção de Agência channel to stay alive, to continue bringing stories like this, which serve as a mirror, hug, and response. And if you know someone who lives in silence, who believes it's time to try again, share. It could be the spark that was needed to ignite the fire of living again, because the past can weigh heavily. But when transformed, he can also light the path for others. Today, as I sit in this chair to write my last words from this long journey, I find myself facing something bigger than the story of a woman who fell and got up. What we experienced, what we were, what we resisted, are not just isolated episodes of a life. These are threads that intertwine with so many other silenced stories, so many other muffled voices, so many other broken hearts that, out of fear or exhaustion, stopped believing that starting over was still possible. For many years, I feared the memory. I thought remembering would weaken me. But time, patient as the sea, taught me that forgetting is half surviving, and remembering, even if it hurts, is the first step to living whole. Every mistake I made, every choice that took me into the dark, every silence that screamed louder than any words, has a place today, not as an open wound, but as an assumed scar. And it takes courage to accept your own scars without shame. It takes strength to tell a story that has no perfect heroes or easy endings. But that's exactly where the beauty of this journey lies. Because real life is not resolved in 3 acts. It pulsates in the detail, in the gesture of someone returning, listening to those who stay, in the forgiveness of those who don't forget, but still decide to love. I am deeply grateful to each woman who passed by me throughout this period. Radha, each one who sat in a workshop, who picked up a line with trembling hands, who said their first word after years of silence. You were not my students. They were my mirrors. They showed me that being strong doesn't mean never falling. It's having someone to lift up with. And more than that, it's having someone to lift up for. I thank those who judged me too, because it was through the weight of these judgments that I found the courage to say, enough is enough, to break through fear, to look into the eyes of the past without lowering your head. It was through the other's hard gaze that I realized that, before being forgiven by someone, I needed to learn to forgive myself. I thank those who gave me a second chance without asking what I did with the first. People like that are rare. They are those that do not define you by what you were, but by what you decide to be from now on. And now, I learned, is all we have. I thank my daughter, who relearned to look at me without the filters of pain, who accepted that her mother was flawed, imperfect, human, and even so, it gave me space to show that love doesn't fade. He remakes himself. I thank my grandchildren who remind me with every laugh that time is generous to those who don't give up. They don't know my whole story, and they may never know it in detail. But you know that your grandmother is someone who one day fell, was on the ground for a long time, but chose to get up with her own hands. Thank you to anyone who has been listening to this story so far. Perhaps you have experienced something similar. Maybe I'm living right now. Maybe you know someone who is on the verge of giving up. If this is your case, receive my complete and true look from here. You are not alone. You are not alone. There's a whole world out there trying to convince you that it's already too late. Don't believe it, because it's never too late to be who you can still be. The biggest lesson of everything I've experienced is simple and at the same time immense. Dignity can be injured, trampled on, buried, but it never dies. She waits, silent, in some corner of the chest, waiting for the right moment to be reborn. And sometimes, that moment only comes when we have nothing left to lose. It was like that with me, and it may be like that with you. If my story touched your heart, if any part of it made sense to you, comment below on the word reborn. That word carries everything I have become, and everything you can become too. If you haven't liked this video yet, now is the time. Your gesture helps the Emoção de Agência channel to continue existing, to continue touching lives through real, courageous, sweaty, but full of truth stories. And if you know someone who needs to hear that starting over is possible, share. Sometimes what saves someone isn't a miracle. It's a story like that. In closing, I leave here my peaceful silence, my heart that no longer carries weight, only memory, and my promise. As long as there are women like us who survived what seemed impossible, there will always be hope. And that, yes, is what I call a happy ending. Because the happy ending is not the end of pain. It is the beginning of freedom.